But we also face a deficit, I said, of a positive vision. A positive vision. We have failed to meet the challenges of our day with the boldness and the vision that our predecessors summoned in times past. Madam President, how much time do I have remaining?
10 minutes.
Indeed, many Republicans...
10 minutes remains for the Democratic side collectively.
I'll just take about 3 more minutes. Many Republicans are demanding that we permanently hobble the federal government, just as their predecessors didn't want to build the roads and the highways and the canals in the past. My friend from Utah had a chart there that said broke or balanced, broke or balanced. They claim our nation is poor and broke. That's not true. That's not true. That negative, defeatist viewpoint is dead wrong. We remain the wealthiest nation on earth. We have the highest per capita income of any major country on the face of the globe. But we have to act decisively with the power of the federal government to boost the economy, foster innovation, and create good middle-class jobs. That is the most important thing. And lastly, balanced budget, let's just do what we know what we did under the Clinton years, in which we had 4 years of balanced budgets and left the biggest surplus in our nation's history. But the Republicans won't do that because they have a defeatist attitude. Well, we need a more bold vision than what the Republicans are offering to the American people.
Madam President.
Senator from Rhode Island.
Madam President, I ask unanimous consent to speak for 10 minutes.
Without objection.
Madam President, our nation asks a lot of our troops. In return, we must give them the best possible equipment to fulfill their vital missions and come home safely. We have a powerful obligation to them to ensure the proper performance of weapon systems, body armor, aircraft parts, and countless other mission-critical products. Today, however, America's military faces a significant and growing threat from counterfeit products entering the military supply chain. So I rise today to speak about a bill I've introduced with Senator McCain, Senator Graham, and Senator Coons, the Combating Military Counterfeits Act of 2011. This bill will enhance the ability of prosecutors to keep counterfeit goods out of the military supply chain. In so doing, it will help protect America's armed forces from the risk of defective equipment. These counterfeit products do not meet military standards. As a result, they put troops' lives at risk, compromise military readiness, and cost the country enormous sums in replacement costs. In the case of microelectronics, counterfeit parts also provide an avenue for cybersecurity threats to infiltrate military systems, possibly enabling hackers to track or even disable crucial national security applications. With troops from Rhode Island and all over the United States serving overseas in Iraq and Afghanistan, we cannot accept criminals selling fake versions of products used by our troops. Unfortunately, however, this unacceptable threat to troop safety and national security is growing. A report by the Government Accountability Office provides examples that demand stiff criminal punishment. It explains that the Defense Department found out in testing that what it thought was Kevlar body armor was in fact nothing of the sort and could not protect our troops the way proper Kevlar can. Our troops going out on patrol in fake body armor is simply unacceptable. In another example, a supplier sold the Defense Department a part that it falsely claimed was a $7,000 circuit that met the specifications of a missile guidance system. Military-grade chips are called that for a reason. They are required to withstand extreme temperature, force, and vibration. Chips that don't meet those specifications are prone to fail. For example, when a jet is at high altitude, when a missile is launching, or when a GPS unit is out in the rugged field. The possible consequences of such equipment failing are dire. A January 2010 study by the Commerce Department quoted a Defense Department official as estimating that counterfeit aircraft parts were leading to a 5 to 15% annual decrease in weapons systems reliability. The Commerce Department study, which surveyed military manufacturers, contractors, and distributors, reported approximately 2.5 times as many incidents of counterfeit electronics in 2008 as in 2005. The high price of military-grade products attracts more and more counterfeiters. On a related matter, one source of the problem has been the often illegal dumping of U.S. electronic waste in countries such as China. Business Week reported in 2010 that used computer chips from old personal computers are fraudulently remarked in China as military grade and sold to U.S. military suppliers. A bill I introduced last week, the Responsible Electronics Recycling Act, would help address that issue by cracking down on the profligate dumping of electronic waste. We should also evaluate this combating military counterfeits bill in the context of the relentless cyber attacks America weathers every day. The chip might not only be counterfeit, it might be the carrier for dangerous viruses and malware that may create windows our enemies can enter to sabotage our military equipment or to steal our military secrets. I applaud those of my colleagues who've been working with the Department of Defense to ensure that it can keep counterfeits out of the supply chain. I particularly appreciate the leadership of Chairman Carl Levin and Ranking Member John McCain of the Armed Services Committee. I'm also pleased that the administration, particularly its Intellectual Property Enforcement Coordinator, Victoria Espinel, is working hard to protect our military from counterfeits. And I'm pleased that the National Intellectual Property Rights Coordination Center recently began Operation Chain Reaction, a new initiative targeting counterfeit items entering the military supply chain. I strongly believe that strengthened criminal provisions should be part of our strategy going forward. As a former United States attorney, I know the significant deterrent effect criminal sanctions can provide. The Department of Justice has a vital role to play in using criminal investigations and prosecutions to identify and deter trafficking in counterfeit military goods. To that end, the administration endorsed increased penalties for trafficking in counterfeit military goods as part of recent recommendations to Congress for better protecting American intellectual property. I'm glad that the administration has recognized the need for legislation, and I look forward to working with them. Our laws currently do not impose any special punishment for trafficking in counterfeit military goods. 18 U.S.C. Section 2320, the counterfeiting statute, does provide heightened penalties for trafficking in counterfeits that result in bodily injury or death. But out on the field, in the battlefield, it is not clear that the part will ever be recovered, and it is impossible sometimes to tell whether the counterfeit caused bodily injury or death. As a result, traffickers in military counterfeits are less likely to face penalties that reflect the unacceptable risks that their counterfeits impose on our soldiers, on our military readiness, and on our national and cyber security. The legislation I'm introducing today with Senator McCain, Senator Graham of South Carolina, and Senator Coons of Delaware addresses this inadequacy in our laws. I urge my colleagues to join me in seeing it passed into law soon. Traffickers should pay a heavy price if they knowingly sell the military a piece of counterfeit body armor that could fail in combat, a counterfeit missile control system that could short-circuit at launch, or a counterfeit GPS that could fail on the battlefield. Our troops deserve Kevlar that is Kevlar, and military-grade chips that are military-grade. By creating an enhanced offense for individuals who traffic in counterfeits and who know that the counterfeit product either is intended for military use or is identified as meeting military standards, this bill will help. It doubles the statutory maximum penalties for such offenses and directs the Sentencing Commission to update the guidelines as appropriate to reflect Congress's intent that trafficking in counterfeit military items be punished sufficiently to deter this wrongful endangerment of our service members. The bill targets only particularly malicious offenders, those who already are guilty of trafficking in counterfeit goods and know that they're selling military counterfeits. This means that the bill will not affect legitimate military contractors who might be unaware that a counterfeit chip has entered into one of their products. and it will not apply to makers of products that unintentionally fall short of military specifications. This bill is intended to help military suppliers by deterring the criminals who sell counterfeits to them or their subcontractors. Manufacturers, like the many high-tech innovators in my home state of Rhode Island, will actually benefit from the protection of their intellectual property. I'm grateful to have the support of the Chamber of Commerce, the Semiconductor Industry Association, the International Counterfeiting Coalition, and others. I look forward to working with them and other interested stakeholders to make this legislation as effective as possible in deterring this particularly reprehensible form of criminal activity. Let me close by thanking Senator Graham, Senator McCain, and Senator Coons for joining me in introducing this bill today. As my colleagues know, Senator McCain and Senator Graham both have long stood out as champions for our troops, and Senator Coons has already become a staunch defender of our national security and our nation's intellectual property. I very much look forward to working with them and my other colleagues on this important bill. All of us in the Senate have the privilege of visiting with and supporting our troops. We all know the sacrifices that they make for our country. We all want to do everything we can to ensure that their equipment functions properly and that counterfeits do not compromise our nation's military readiness or their capability. Passing the Combating Military Counterfeits Act of 2011 will be a valuable step towards these important goals. I thank my colleagues, and I yield the floor.
Morning business is closed. Under the previous order, the Senate will resume consideration of S-679, which the clerk will report.
Calendar number 75, S-679, a bill to reduce the number of executive positions subject to Senate confirmation.
Madam President,
Senator from New York.
I ask unanimous consent that notwithstanding the previous order for the votes to begin at 11 a.m., there now be 10 minutes equally divided between the two leaders or their designees prior to the votes. Further, that there be 2 minutes equally divided between the votes. Finally, all roll call votes after the first vote be 10-minute votes.
Without objection.
Thank you, Madam President. And I will take the 5 minutes on our side, and I believe Senator DeMint will be taking the 5 minutes on the other side. Madam President, I rise today and join my colleagues in strong support of the nominations reform package before us today. This bipartisan bill and resolution, which we'll vote on a bit later, will effectively change the way the Senate does business, and it is long past time to do just that. It isn't often this body voluntarily takes steps to curb its own power, but for the good of our democracy, the Senate must become more efficient. I'd like to thank my good friend and colleague, Senator Lamar Alexander, who's been a driving force behind this effort and has been steadfast in his resolve to make a change to this body. We have worked in a bipartisan way, resolving all the differences in a way that I would hope the Senate could work more often on more pieces of legislation. I'd also like to thank the chair and ranking members of the Homeland Security Committee, Senators Lieberman and Collins, for their input and expertise in drafting this piece of legislation and moving it quickly and productively through their committee. Their impact on this process can't be understated. And finally, I'd like to thank Leader Reid and Republican Leader McConnell. Back in January, when we were negotiating reforms to the body, they set up our working group to look into the problem of executive nominations, and they supported and were an active part of our efforts. Now, Mr. President, Madam President, the Senate has always been known as a cooling saucer, but as of late, it's become a sub-zero freezer. Nominees of impeccable qualification and indisputable support have been frozen out of the confirmation process, and the backup in nominations also gridlocks other important legislative business. And that is why the Senate, often known as the cooling saucer, is now, too often, a sub-zero freezer. But today we'll be taking a meaningful and important step toward changing this. The rapid growth of the executive branch has put unanticipated burdens on the Senate, whose job it is to confirm the President's appointees. There is nothing wrong with the Senate doing a little prioritizing of its pending business. Today, about one-third of the current Senate confirmable positions will either not require confirmation at all or enjoy a streamlined confirmation. By now, we all know what S679 and Senate Res 116 do. What will their impact be? In short, this package of reform will help our government function better. One example of this is the working group that the bill creates to examine a smart form to streamline the paperwork by a nominee. A nominee may now, today, have to complete 3 separate financial disclosure forms for the executive and legislative branches. Hopefully, the idea of not having to fill out mountains of paperwork only to be trapped by different definitions or tricky questions will be appealing to government servants. Additionally, this bill and resolution we're voting on today will help the Senate focus more like a laser beam on issues affecting average Americans like jobs. The less time committees have to spend on nominees, the more time they can spend on improving the everyday life of Americans. Over the last decades, we've seen an amazing increase in the nominees we've had to confirm. It's gotten out of hand, and that's something both sides agreed on. We're in no way abdicating our advise and consent duty. We're strengthening it. We're focusing on the positions that truly need it according to the Constitution. And this package represents the final piece to the reform deal that was set forth in January. Last spring, motivated by the good work of Tom Udall of New Mexico, the Rules Committee undertook and detailed an examination of the history and application of the Senate rules, especially the filibuster. After 6 hearings and many conversations, we reached a historic point in January when something needed to be done. Change happens slowly. We all know that, particularly in the U.S. Senate. And sometimes it's a product of compromise and deliberation. We all know that this institution, as grand and wonderful as it is, could always serve to benefit by a bit of change. Today we have some of that change. Is it everything we want? No, far from it. But it'll make effectiveness. And I'd like for a minute to thank the chairs of our Senate committees and the ranking members as well. When we first spoke of this back in January, to the introduction of the bill in March, through markup and now today, the chairmen have impacted greatly by our efforts, and we have listened to them and made changes that they have suggested, which on reflection we thought were worthwhile. We have listened to both chairs and ranking members, understood their positions, and wanted their ideas. All the while, however, they understood what we were attempting to do, and we appreciate their support. In conclusion, before the final passage of this bill, we'll be voting on 4 amendments. It's our hope we can adopt Senator Portman, Udall, and Cornyn's amendment and Senator Toomey's amendment by voice vote. At the same time, I encourage my colleagues to vote against Senator DeMint's 2 amendments. One amendment would have harmful consequences if passed and could disrupt how the IMF does business. The other, while couched in transparency, essentially removes legislative affairs and public affairs positions from the bills. We've already agreed to remove the legislative affairs positions. It should seem the Senate should have some say in determining who is going to give information that the Senate and others need. But we don't think that the public affairs positions should not have to go through Senate confirmation. All the spokespeople report to the Senate confirmed individuals who we have oversight over. So we don't agree with that half of Senator DeMint's proposal. I'd like once again to thank my colleague and friend, Senator Alexander. I'd also like to thank Senators Lieberman and Collins. In a few minutes, we'll vote on final passage of S679 and S-Reg 116, and I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to make a strong statement in favor of more effective government by voting aye and yield the floor.
Madam Chairman, President.
Senator from Tennessee.
Madam President, I thank Senator Schumer for his leadership, Senator Collins, Senator Lieberman. I'll make my remarks following the vote. But this bill helps the Senate do its job under its Constitution. Article 2, Section 2, tells us to designate those persons who should not be advised in consent. We're reducing that total by 169. We're expediting about 280 more. We're removing about 2,600 from the officer corps. It's a good example of bipartisan work here. I want to thank my colleagues for improving the bill, amending it, pointing out things to us that needed to be changed. One of those has been Senator DeMint, and I yield the rest of our time before the vote to Senator DeMint to speak on his amendment.
Thank you, Senator Alexander.
Senator from South Carolina.
Thank you, Madam President. Senator Alexander, Senator Collins, thank you for your leadership on this issue. It is good to see Democrats and Republicans working together on something. Unfortunately, like many of the things we work on, we're dealing with symptoms of a much deeper problem that we fail to recognize. The reason we've gone from a few hundred confirmations during President Kennedy's time to thousands today is because of the incredible exponential growth of the federal government. New departments everywhere where we have new positions that have to be filled with nominees who are confirmed by the Senate. Rather than to look at this behemoth that we've created, instead we're moving to make it somewhat less accountable. I appreciate the rationale behind this, but I do think we have to recognize when we're treating symptoms and not really solving the problem that has led to much of the debt, the spending, and really out of control Congress and congressional interventions, because all of these agencies invade on the private sector. But I do appreciate the opportunity to speak and to offer an amendment. And the amendment we'll be voting on in a few minutes does relate to the International Monetary Fund. This is a fund set up years ago to help struggling poor nations who get themselves in trouble. The United States has been the largest contributor for years. But it's gone from being an international agency that helped a limited number of difficult situations to one that's now huge, that has access to Americans, our general fund. And that's what I want to talk about today, because my amendment would deauthorize what we did in 2009 to open our bank account to bailouts all over the world. Americans have gotten plenty tired of our spending and our borrowing, and particularly the bailouts that they've seen from Washington, and how these bailouts have not worked, but often made things worse. But the International Bailout Fund is the International Monetary Fund. And in 2009, this Congress passed an additional $100 billion credit line to the International Monetary Fund. This can be drawn on without any congressional approval, without the President's approval. It's an open checkbook, in effect, that the International Monetary Fund can use, and they will use during these difficult times as we see irresponsible nations like Greece who need international funds to continue their profligate spending. We've got to deauthorize this. Our country is in dire straits, close to bankruptcy ourselves. The President is asking us for the fourth time to increase the debt limit of our nation so we can borrow another $2 trillion on top of the $14 trillion that we've already borrowed. We cannot afford to let the International Monetary Fund, who we found in the last month has some questionable management practices, to access $100 billion more than they already have of our money and help bail out countries all over the world who have failed to make the difficult decisions. And don't think for a moment this is helping the poor in other countries. This is a bailout for the big banks around the world who've made loans to government and now expect the International Monetary Fund to back them up. Americans had enough of that during our own Wall Street bailouts. But this Congress has approved $100 billion more, which has not been accessed yet, but it's available to the International Monetary Fund right now without our permission. But we can stop that today with this amendment. There is no excuse for us giving away money around the world when we cannot even keep our promises here in America today. Promises we've made to our seniors. Promises we've made to veterans. So I encourage my colleagues to maybe do one responsible fiscal thing in this session of Congress and at least put this on hold. Let's stop this authorized $100 billion for international bailouts. Thank you, Madam President. And I ask for the yeas and nays.
Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. The question is on amendment number 501, offered by Senator DeMint. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka. Mr. Alexander, Ms. Ayotte, Mr. Barrasso, Mr. Baucus, Mr. Beckidge, Mr. Bennett, Mr. Bingaman, Mr. Blumenthal, Mr. Blunt, Mr. Bozeman, Mrs. Boxer, Mr. Brown of Massachusetts, Mr. Brown of Ohio, Mr. Burr, Ms. Cantwell, Mr. Cardin, Mr. Carper, Mr. Casey, Mr. Chambliss, Mr. Coates, Mr. Coburn, Mr. Cochran, Ms. Collins, Mr. Conrad, Mr. Coons. Mr. Corker, Mr. Cornyn, Mr. Crapo, Mr. DeMint, Mr. Durbin, Mr. Enzi, Mrs. Feinstein, Mr. Franken, Mrs. Gillibrand, Mr. Graham, Mr. Grassley, Mrs. Hagan,
I'll see what I can do.
Mr. Harkin, Mr. Hatch, Mr. Heller, Mr. Hoven, Mrs. Hutchison, Mr. Inhofe, Mr. Noway, Mr. Isaacson, Mr. Johans, Mr. Johnson of Wisconsin, Mr. Johnson of South Dakota, Mr. Carey, Mr. Kirk, Ms. Klobuchar, Mr. Cole, Mr. Kyle, Ms. Landrieu, Mr. Lautenberg, Mr. Leahy, Mr. Lee, Mr. Levin, Mr. Lieberman, Mr. Lugar, Mr. Manchin, Mr. McCain, Mrs. McCaskill, Mr. McConnell, Mr. Menendez, Mr. Merkley, Ms. Mikulski, Mr. Moran, Ms. Murkowski, Mrs. Murray, Mr. Nelson of Nebraska, Mr. Nelson of Florida, Mr. Paul, Mr. Portman, Mr. Reed of Rhode Island, Mr. Reed of Nevada, Mr. Risch, Mr. Roberts, Mr. Rockefeller, Mr. Rubio, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Sessions, Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Shelby, Ms. Snow, Ms. Stabenow, Mr. Tester, Mr. Thune, Mr. Toomey, Mr. Udall of Colorado, Mr. Udall of New Mexico, Mr. Vitter, Mr. Warner, Mr. Webb, Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden. Senators voting in the affirmative: Burr, Dement, Isaacson, Johnson of Wisconsin, Tester, and Vitter. Senators voting in the negative: Bingaman, Blumenthal, Carper, Coons, Lieberman, Murray, Roberts, and Whitehouse. Mr. Kaka, no. Mr. Franken, no. Mrs. Gillibrand, no. Mr. McConnell, aye. Mr. Schumer, no. Ms. Klobuchar, no. Mr. Reed of Nevada, no. Mr. Cochran. Mr. Cochran, no. Mr. Blunt, aye. Mr. Kyle, aye. Mr. Paul. Mr. Paul, aye. Mr. Pryor, no. Mrs. Boxer? Mrs. Boxer, no. Mr. Inouye, no. Mr. Rubio, aye. Mr. Bozeman, aye. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chambliss, aye. Mr. Grassley. Mr. Grassley, aye. Ms. Lugar. Mr. Lugar, no. Mr. Wyden. No. Mr. Wyden, no. Ms. Ayotte, aye. Mr. Carper. Mr. Carper, no. Mr. Heller, aye. Stabenow. Ms. Stabenow, no. Mr. Brown of Massachusetts, no.
Short sleeves are allowed, but no sleeves are not allowed. No, I didn't know if it was breaking protocol. Hers is very happy. Hers are cats. What do you think?
Mr. Lee, aye. Mr. Durbin, no. Sanders. Mr. Sanders, no. Mr. Moran, aye.
Can you eat on that? What about Jones? His other job is just providing something. Folks gas in there.
Mr. Johnson of South Dakota, no. Ms. Snow, aye. Mr. Graham? Mr. Graham, aye. Mr. Leahy, no. Ms. Mikulski, no. Ms. Cantwell? Ms. Cantwell? No. Ms. Landrieu? No. Mr. Johans? Aye. Mr. Brown of Ohio? No. Mr. Menendez? Mr. Menendez? No. Mrs. Hagan? No. Mr. Wicker? Aye. Mr. Casey? Mr. Casey? No. Mr. Barrasso? Mr. Barrasso? Aye. Mrs. Feinstein? No. Mr. Cornyn? Aye. Mr. Coburn? Mr. Coburn? Aye. Mr. Inhofe? Aye. Mr. Reed of Rhode Island? No. Mr. Sessions? Mr. Sessions? Aye. Mr. Toomey? Mr. Toomey? Aye. Mrs. McCaskill? No. Mr. Corker? Aye. Mr. Coates? Mr. Coates? Aye. Mrs. Shaheen? No. Mr. Nelson, Nebraska? Mr. Nelson of Nebraska? No. Mr. Webb? No. Mr. Hoven? Mr. Hoven? Aye. Mr. McCain? Aye. Mr. Bennett? No. You said no. Mr. Manchin? No. Mr. Kirk? No. Mr. Enzi? Aye. Levin. Mr. Levin? No. Mr. Conrad? No. Mr. Carey? No. Ms. Collins? Aye. Mr. Alexander? Aye. Mrs. Hutcherson? Aye. Mr. Cardin? Mr. Cardin? No. Mr. Hatch? Mr. Hatch? Aye. Mr. Merkley? Mr. Merkley? No. Mr. Warner? No. Mr. Roberts? Aye. Mr. Cole? Mr. Cole? No. Mr. Crapo? Aye. Mr. Risch? Mr. Risch? Aye. Mr. Portman? Mr. Portman? Aye. Ms. Lautenberg? Mr. Lautenberg, no. Mr. Harkin. Mr. Harkin, no. Mr. Thune. Mr. Thune, aye. Mr. Udall. Mr. Udall of Colorado, no. Mr. Beckidge. Mr. Beckidge, no. Mr. Rockefeller. Mr. Rockefeller, no. Mr. Nelson of Florida, no. Mr. Baucus. Mr. Baucus, no. Mr. Shelby. Mr. Shelby, aye. Ms. Murkowski. Ms. Murkowski, aye.
Are there any senators wishing to vote or change their vote? If not, the yeas are 44, the nays are 55. Under the previous order requiring 60 votes for the adoption of this amendment, the amendment is not agreed to. Okay. There are now 2 minutes of debate, equally divided prior to the next vote. There will be 2 minutes of debate prior to the vote on the Portman amendment. May we have order in the chamber, please?
Madam President.
Senator from Connecticut.
Madam President, I support this. I support this amendment, and I'm prepared to yield back any additional time.
Madam President.
Is there further debate? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The amendment is agreed to.
Move for reconsideration and it be laid on the table.
Without objection.
Thank the Chair.
Voice votes first.
Right.
There will now be 2 minutes of debate prior to the DeMint amendment, number 511.
Madam President. Madam President.
Senator from South Carolina.
Thank you. The Senate's not in order, Madam President.
Senate needs to come to order. Can senators take their conversations from the well? Senator from South Carolina.
Thank you, Madam President. This next amendment is about accountability and transparency, and I want to thank the leaderships, the teams on both sides for accepting most of the positions here for legislative affairs that interface on our behalf with the administration. There are 8 more positions, and that's all this amendment is about, and they're public affairs positions that interface on behalf of the public with the administration. Certainly we can give the public the same accountability and transparency that we ask for ourselves. These are the positions within the White House for for the
Will the
defense.
gentleman suspend?
If for,
May we please have order in the chamber? Can the senators take their conversations from the well?
If Americans have a problem in any area, whether it's defense contracting, health and human services, HUD, labor, they call a public affairs officer. These folks need to be accountable to us, and we need to make sure that they respond to the American people. There's only 8 positions here that we're asking to go through the normal confirmation process, so I encourage my colleagues to support this amendment.
Madam President.
Senator from Maine.
Madam President, I rise in opposition to Senator DeMint's amendment. Madam President, yesterday the manager's amendment, which was agreed to, retained the Senate confirmation requirement for the legislative affairs positions. So the only thing we're talking about here are the public affairs positions. Most of these positions in cabinet-level departments do not require Senate confirmation under our current process. And heavens help us if these public affairs people are making policy. They are not. They are just the messenger. We need to reserve the Senate's advice and consent process for policy-making positions or those that have control over federal funds. Neither of those criteria apply in this case. I urge the rejection of the DeMint amendment.
Madam President, I ask for the yeas and nays.
Is there sufficient second? There appears to be. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka. Mr. Alexander. Ms. Ayotte. Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Balkus. Mr. Begich. Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bingaman. Mr. Blumenthal.
Yes.
Mr. Blunt.
You were good.
You need me?
I got to run late. I'm back looking at faster and I'll be back.
Mr. Bozeman.
Yes, I heard. Yeah, I did.
Mrs. Boxer. Mr. Brown of Massachusetts. Mr. Brown of Ohio. Mr. Burr.
Everybody loves New York. I got lots of great feedback from your visit. Like, oh, it's great.
Ms. Cantwell. Mr. Cardin. Mr. Carper.
Perfect.
Tell Henry I said hey.
Thank you.
Mr. Casey. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Coates. Mr. Coburn. Mr. Cochran. Ms. Collins. Mr. Conrad. Mr. Coons. Mr. Corker. Mr. Cornyn. Mr. Crapo. Mr. DeMint. Mr. Durbin. Mr. Enzi. Mrs. Feinstein. Mr. Franken. Mrs. Gillibrand. Mr. Graham, Mr. Grassley, Mrs. Hagan, Mr. Harkin, Mr. Hatch. Mr. Heller.
You were in Libby.
Mr. Hoven. Mrs. Hutchison, Mr. Inhofe, Mr. Inouye, Mr. Isaacson, Mr. Johans, Mr. Johnson of Wisconsin, Mr. Johnson of South Dakota, Mr. Kerry, Mr. Kirk, Ms. Klobuchar, Mr. Cole, Mr. Kyle, Ms. Landrieu, Mr. Lautenberg, Mr. Leahy, Mr. Lee, Mr. Levin, Mr. Lieberman, Mr. Lugar, Mr. Manchin, Mr. McCain, Mrs. McCaskill, Mr. McConnell, Mr. Menendez, Mr. Merkley, Ms. Mikulski, Mr. Moran, Ms. Murkowski, Mrs. Murray, Mr. Nelson of Nebraska, Mr. Nelson of Florida, Mr. Paul, Mr. Portman, Mr. Pryor, Mr. Reed of Rhode Island, Mr. Reed of Nevada, Mr. Risch, Mr. Roberts, Mr. Rockefeller, Mr. Rubio, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Sessions, Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Shelby, Ms. Snow, Ms. Stabenow, Mr. Tester, Mr. Thune, Mr. Toomey, Mr. Udall of Colorado, Mr. Udall of New Mexico, Mr. Vitter, Mr. Warner, Mr. Webb, Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden,